So we're back. Hello and welcome to this episode of Steelfur Speaks. I'm, of course, as always, Steelfur Finbar, also called Finbar, London-based Flesh and Blood player, Proquest second place finisher. Um, you know, won some RTNs too. That seems like a world ago, given the aggressiveness of the new Flesh and Blood tournament schedule. I want to talk about the Pro Tour New Jersey. I'm going to be there. It's going to be awesome. I am sadly down here at the bottom of the list on the transferred PTIs. I arranged a transfer of a PTI to myself, as unfortunately I did not win one. I had a bit of a rough ProQuest season. I didn't really have a lot of time to practice, and then ended up coming second in the last event of the season. Big Fs in chat for me, I guess. So I'm happy enough to get that transfer. I'm happy enough to be going. I was going to be going anyway to play in the calling, but I'm really glad to be playing in the PTI. So thank you to the person who has given that to me. It is really appreciated, and I hope to do you proud. I'm not coming out like, some of the people practice this game a lot harder than I do. I'm not going to put a massive boast there and say I'm going to win the tournament. I would love to make day 2 at least, preferably day 3. But if I make day 2, I'll be super happy. If not, you'll find me in the calling with everyone else who's good, but not good enough. So, yeah, this is going to be awesome. We're going out to New Jersey on the Wednesday, I think, to be ready for the Friday start. And obviously, of course, we have the calling Krakow before then, which I will be attending. I'm just working out my flights and accommodation with some mates. So that's going to be very fun. I'm really excited to see some Blitz play. I'm really pleased with where Blitz is right now. It just seems really fun. I've been playing Kano again. Kano's got some new toys. It's just hilarious to melt people when they think they're going to kill you. Shouldn't have emptied that hand, bro. So yeah, this is really exciting. Let's just talk a bit about the event calendar. This is entirely speculation, but one of my friends has drawn up what they consider to probably be the rough event schedule for the year. Just based on things we've heard from James White in other interviews, and of course an idea of when we need events to happen in order to have meta shifts and keep things exciting. So obviously we started off in January to February with Everfest here. We have the ProQuest season, the first skirmish season, and then the first Pro Tour. There's a few callings happening in between here. Then, of course, we have June, which is pretty much guaranteed to be the new set. We have a pre-release schedule, which is going to be in Europe. We have another ProQuest season here, and we have an idea that the French Pro Tour is going to be happening in August. There is a bit of a question in my head whether there will be a third Pro Tour in APAC somewhere, but I would understand them only doing 2 Pro Tours this year because, as you can see, the schedule is pretty packed as it is. So we're going ProQuest immediately after the Pro Tour, which will be the same meta as the Pro Tour, then into a new set release, into a series of skirmishes, which will probably be limited and draft skirmishes and blitz where that's not possible, into the French Pro Tour, which is looking like my guess is it's going to be early in August, probably not on the bank holiday weekend for France, because that would be a bit awkward. Remember, the French go on holiday for a lot of August, so you don't really want to schedule that too early. But it may be sort of early August before people have really gone on holiday with their families to give them a chance to get the Pro Tour out of the way and then get into their summer holiday with their family. I think if you schedule it mid-August, it really just causes a lot of problems for people in France and on the continent. In fact, I really just don't think you can schedule this mid-August, but anyway, it is what it is. So we're going to do our skirmish season, we're going to go into Pro Tour 2, then we have to have Road to Nationals, because there needs to be 3 months of XP grind, probably, to get into Nationals. Then we have set release number 3, because Nationals wants to be a fresh meta. This is going to be the supplemental set. We know that from the James White interview with the Iron Ophidia. Then we're going to have another skirmish season 3, and there's just a big question mark about World Championships. So within this whole season, there's some Battle Hardens missing, there's some callings missing. There's 2 Battle Hardens in Spain and Germany going on here. There'll be a few more in other places in the world. There's going to be a few callings. There's going to be the calling in Krakow. There's a calling in Taiwan. There's going to be a few more callings. Those are all going to reward PTIs, as well as the Pro Tour. Those PTIs can be redeemed for the World Championships. The speculation is that some point between December and January 2023, we're going to have a big World Championship event, probably in America, because that's where the largest player base concentrated is at the moment, probably in somewhere like Las Vegas. And all the PTIs from Nats, Road to Pro Tours, Callings, Battle Hardens will be redeemable for this World Championships event. There will probably also at this point be an ELO invitation, because there will have been a few ELO rated events happening. So maybe this will be our first ELO invitation. I really hope there is not an XP invitation for this as well, though I imagine there could be. But if there is, I really hope that it's a limited number from each country rather than an overall XP sort of thing. I kind of need them to disincentivize online grinding. I think only XP earned from events run within your country should be eligible for the World Championships, and I also think that only the top like 20 players from your country should get an invite on 90 Day and Lifetime, maybe, rather than the top 100. They really need to do something about the XP grind. And if they use XP for any tournaments again, they need to keep that in mind. So this is a rough idea of the schedule with a few other things put in mind. This is really just to balance like set releases, keeping things fresh for big events like Nationals, Worlds, keeping things fresh for skirmishes and the Pro Tours, and really giving people a lot of options to have a lot of fun. It does feel kind of weird that this ProQuest meta is happening in the same meta as the Pro Tour 1, when really it would be so much better if this was happening afterwards. But maybe they just don't want to run a ProQuest right in the middle of summer, right after a new set has just released. Personally, I think that's a mistake. I would run it slap bang in the middle of like June, July, after the set comes out, before the first Pro Tour. But I guess they kind of want it over with so that people can have an idea of whether or not they're going to this Pro Tour a few months in advance. And one of the themes of my feedback towards LSS recently has been they need to publish schedules a lot more in advance about when people are going to be expected to do things. Because a lot of people I know have paid to go to the Pro Tour, and if they knew that there was going to be another one in France and the ProQuest season was going to start the same weekend as the Pro Tour, they probably would not have decided to go to the Pro Tour in America. So please, LSS, if you're watching this video, maybe one of you is. I know Chris Bewley might be a fan of me. Maybe because he's another Ninja player, so we have something in common. You need to start publishing an event schedule for the year. It doesn't have to have things 100% set in stone. It does have to give a rough idea of, early August, mid-August. People will accept a little bit of like flexibility and tolerance. There's a lot of things going on in the world you can't control, COVID, conflicts, things like that. But at least coming out with an idea of, okay, this set's coming out here, this set's coming out here. Our main Pro Tours are going to be early May, late August. Nationals is going to be November. Skirmish seasons are going to be March to April, June to July, October to November. World Championships will be in December. That gives people a good idea of basically when to pull their money for, and when to basically... I'm saying basically a lot tonight. It's because I'm quite tired. I don't have this problem. My girlfriend is very supportive of my hobby, but not everyone's is. And also, you have a family, and if you have a family, you have to negotiate who's going to look after the kids, who's going to invest a lot of energy that it takes to look after them alone, and who's going to manage all of these things by themselves while you're away playing Flesh and Blood. I have many friends, you know who you are, who do have to basically regulate how many events they're going to go to, how often they're going to go to tournaments, when they're going to play with their wife, because they cannot leave their partner solely responsible for all of their children, management of those things, looking after the house, and all these other things that have to be done when you have a family and you have responsibilities. Those people need to understand when and how to most optimally spend their time to get the best out of every year of Flesh and Blood, right? And if that means going to skirmish seasons because they're happening every 3 months and just playing locally, traveling an hour to tournaments and having a really good time playing Blitz, playing limited at skirmishes, and avoiding the Pro Tours, the ProQuests, the Battle Hardens and all those things, but then maybe going to the road to Nationals and trying to be a national level competitor rather than a global level competitor is kind of important. Or whether or not you're going to go to, say, Pro Tour 1, which is in America and it's a big deal, or Pro Tour 2, which lines up better with your work schedule, but doesn't line up with your family schedule. Like, it's just important to know all this information in advance. And I know that LSS are going to be wary of giving this out early because they've been having problems. But realistically, this is what we're going to need next year is just a rough event schedule calendar so that people can decide when there are this many events going on. I know plenty of people who are like, I wouldn't have paid the entry for that. I wouldn't have traveled to this. I wouldn't have, used my parents to babysit the kids that weekend if I had known that this other tournament was happening in a month's time. I'd much prefer to be playing that format in this way. I need these events to be announced more in advance. And I had a similar thing. I would have gone to the Battle Hardened and Skirmish in Leeds, but 3 weeks before, my company was planning an away trip to Scotland, and they said, okay, we can organise it any of these 3 weekends in Scotland. Does anyone have any clashes, or will we just organise it on the first weekend? Everyone's a free. I said, okay, cool. No clashes. Let's organise it on the 17th, 18th of March. And then 2 weeks later, maybe I'm getting the timings wrong. I think it was maybe 2 months ago they were asking those questions, and then a couple of weeks later, Flab comes out and says, "Oh, there's this really huge tournament on that weekend." My company would have had zero problem changing the weekend that we were doing our. So I'm assuming a lot, but because we hadn't even started scheduling it yet, if I had said, "Look, I'm away that weekend. There's a huge card game tournament on," my company is really supportive of my card gaming. My boss watched the stream of UK Nationals, specifically to watch my games and chime into the commentary. If I'm going to the Pro Tour, when I get back, they will be like, how did you do? If I do well, they'll be like, that's amazing. They'll be really supportive. If I had said, I have a really big card tournament I need to go to because I need to get into this tournament, I need to get an invite, they would have been like, okay, that's cool. We'll just do it the next weekend. Maybe. But I could have at least had that conversation because there really wasn't that much in between us scheduling it one way or another. So that's my point. Fab just kind of needs to give a bit more information. So we do have our ProQuest Season 2 coming up. It is worth noting that Gem is now allowing you to assign heroes and reminding you if you haven't assigned heroes. This is just to smooth out the collection of hero data and the Living Legends leaderboard. We're going to talk about the Living Legends leaderboard in a second. Also, just, we have the announcements for the ProQuest Season 2. Some of what is contained in here is a little bit disappointing. Again, I had hoped that the ProQuest Season 2 would be here. So I'd hoped we get new set in June, ProQuest Season 2 here with the new set, and then run into the Pro Tour with this new set meta after being tested in the ProQuest. And also, I was kind of hoping, because the Pro Tour in France, from what I've seen so far, is going to be limited and classic constructed, that some of these ProQuests could have been limited ProQuests after that new set has come out. But it's happening earlier than I'd liked, and it is all going to be classic constructed. And in a bit of a misstep, it is all going to be the same classic constructed format as the Pro Tour, which is, I think that's just a bit of a misstep. I think people are going to have had quite a lot of this format by the time that gets around. Not everyone is going to the Pro Tour, but a lot of people are helping people practice for the Pro Tour. So these emails went out today, so your local event should have an idea of whether or not they can host one. They should have got an email today. I know my local store didn't. F's in chat. But a store local to me will have, just not my local store. The prizes is one random drop gold foil card, and one Dragon Shield OP display. So the top 8 will get a special set of limited edition sleeves, which is kind of cool. Though, given that everyone was getting a cold foil hero for making the top 8 in the last, it does feel like a bit of a step down to get some limited edition sleeves. But we are going to have to see how cool they are, therefore how much in demand they are. It depends if they are the sleeves that we've seen from Dragon Shield that were on sale, so the hero sleeves, or whether they are something a bit more exciting. Hopefully there's something very, very spicy just to keep people interested. Otherwise, it's going to feel like a bit of a step down to go from playmats and cold foil heroes to sleeves that you may not even like. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how the demand is for these. We'll have to see how popular they are. Because remember, part of going to ProQuest is getting promos that are worth something, so you can potentially pass them on to other people. The Gold Drop Cold Foils, really popular. Delighted to see those coming back. It is a bit frustrating looking at this price structure that these really are all or nothing events. And that's fine if your ProQuest is like 16 people. But if your ProQuest is like 70 people or 80, has been seen in like somewhere like the Netherlands, having one prize for the top player, having some sleeves for everyone else, and having one invite is really kind of a miss. So, it does feel a bit, I don't know, there should be some sort of in my opinion, right? If you're running at this stage, if you're running a 60-person plus Pro Tour, there should be 2 invites, right? You've made it to the finals ahead of 58 other people, and you lose out on the invite to a Pro Tour by like this much. I feel like that is just not good enough at this stage of the game. Because remember, I say that all of these new games should be reasonably inclusive at the start. You should set out with an idea of how many people you want to invite. So the event size is 500 people. Okay, cool. So we need to get 500 people to the Pro Tour every single time we are doing a Pro Tour. And when the game's reasonably sized, you start off by saying, okay, loads of people can come. And then as the game grows more, you have to tighten up those criteria. Less and less people get invites, but you still keep that number of people that you're aiming for. I would have happily seen, and this may sound a bit harsh to people who got invited that way, 50 less people qualify from the 100 XP whatever, and an extra 2 people invited from the bigger ProQuests, right? Because one of the things we're going to see here is if we do a bit of work on this, and let's actually do a bit of work on this. So let's actually do a bit of work on this. Let's get data. Get data from web. Just 1 second. Let me bring up that page again because I need to copy it. Yep. Get data from web. Okay. Organized play, qualified players. This should work. I'm just basically going to look to grab the table and count the number of entries. I could do it manually, but I'm kind of lazy. All right, a few minutes later, not that many actually, to be honest. Excel is very friendly. And you've just had a bit of a free Excel tutorial if you didn't know how to do this already. And all that data has been pulled out into lovely, lovely sheets. If anyone's worried about me having their name, I will delete this after I finish recording this video. But if we look at all of these, we have the first place finishes from the ProQuest. We have the XP finishes. We have the pass downs from ProQuest. And we have the transfers. Now, if we look at this, I'm trying to remember exactly how many ProQuests were played. You can also see who's got that really elusive 4-digit Fab number, which is from, of course, the early days of Fab. We can see that there are 250 first place qualifiers, 180 people qualifying from XP, 118 pass downs, 7 transfers for a total of 455 people invited to the tournament. Now, I know for a fact, because I've seen them mention it, there are that's Discord. There are a few people who are missing from this list. So this number will go up slightly. We also probably haven't seen all the people who are going to transfer, who have actually. We've seen 7 so far. I suspect as the event gets a bit closer, there will be a lot more redeems of PTIs for people who start to worry about missing out the first Pro Tour ever. This may also not be their target size for Pro Tours for every Pro Tour. This might just be their target size for the first Pro Tour, because they obviously want a huge first Pro Tour with a huge calling as well alongside it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 1,500 people at both combined events in New Jersey, and it's going to be amazing. It is worth noting, of course, that 250 first place qualifiers, there were only 18 pass downs. It is quite interesting to wonder how many of these were burnt. So, like, how many went to people who didn't and just won't go. I know the last ProQuest I went to, where I came second, the person who came first didn't know he couldn't get a visa until he dug into it a bit more later that day, and now he can't, and that's fine. He had the right to try and figure it out. But I know that invite is burned. It will be also very interesting to see how many others get burned just from people who won because they wanted a gold foil, because they wanted to win a ProQuest for the fame and everything that comes with, but obviously didn't want to come, or how many people thought that this ProQuest invitation was transferable or sellable, which of course it wasn't. Sad face if you thought you were going to do that, and therefore got it and then realized they couldn't do anything with it. It's also wondering just what happened to the other 20 people on the XP list. Maybe they were already invited through the ProQuest wins, but I would have thought there'd be a bit more overlap on that front. But I mean, we can reasonably quickly sort of see that there are people already overlapped on that list. So if we just do, let's just put these two together and let's just see how much overlap we've got. Mm-hmm. I am an Excel wizard. Yeah, cool. And then just delete a find and select. We'll just sort A to Z. Auto sum. No sum. Interesting. All right, so let's just play a really quick game. I suspect this number is going to be quite high. Just counting duplicates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it's only actually 20 overlap, which is actually pretty good. So that's 20 invites that are burned just straight away because the person has 2 invites, which is a bit of a flaw of combining the XP system with the ProQuest system. It feels very, very bad, I would say. If you came second in an event to one of these people who also qualified on the XP list, then that invite was lost, did not pass down to you. But obviously, it is a bit tricky as well, because there's no way to approve the XP list before the ProQuests are happening. But I mean, LSS could have obviously just kept a record of everyone who qualified on XP and then just made sure that if they got a first place finish, just passed down the invite to the second place at that tournament. It doesn't look like they've done that, but that would have been quite nice to see, because what we're talking about here is essentially people not getting into the Pro Tour, who probably would have tried quite hard to get into the Pro Tour, played an event, came second, and then just not getting in, but losing out to someone who is already qualified through other means. I'm not saying it's on the players either, because if you were on this list of 100 people on the XP list, then you know how much of a grind it was staying on that list. I know quite a few people who were hovering around the 90s to 97s and had to go to multiple armories a day just to get that XP going. So I'm not putting any blame on you guys. I would happily take a ProQuest win, even if I was trying to get in on XP, because that would just guarantee that I get in. I mean, I can stop the grind, and if I then get in on XP as well, that's not my problem. But maybe it would have been nice to see some sort of acknowledgement of that. Maybe the people who came in on the XP list didn't then get to qualify on the first place list. And as LSS has a record of who these people are, you'd be very, very easy to go into the system, find out the event they won, and pass down that prize to the second place. And send them a nice email saying, hey, you got invited to the ProQuest. That sounds really nice to me. But that is obviously not what happened, and that's kind of okay. But, we'll kind of see how they do it better next time. This is, of course, the first time that they've done a Pro Tour. I think there's a lot of chances for improvement with this system. I think ELO invites instead of XP invites are one of the ways that system will eventually improve. But for now, we have what we have. Yeah, it is worth noting as well. I just want to talk briefly about Living Legend. And it is just worth acknowledging that after Stavo's recent win at the at the corner in Indianapolis, it is now on 814 points. There are 2 battle hardens coming up, which are worth 30 points each. There is, of course, another calling happening in Taiwan. It does not look like Stavro will get Living Legend before the Pro Tour, but if he wins the Pro Tour or any number of the ProQuests after the Pro Tour, it is very likely that he will be Living Legend before the next set comes out. So it will be very interesting to see how LSS handle this, because obviously you have a hero that's gone from release to Living Legend, pretty much going to be the fastest ever, hopefully, in the game. It kind of shows that his design was a bit imbalanced because he won so consistently so many tournaments right from release. Even, people tweaked the deck and then he just started winning, which is a bit bad. and even overtaking other previously quite oppressive heroes like Chain and Briar to just race towards Living Legend. And it's part of two sort of discussions. The first discussion is there's a lot more tournaments being played, which means that there's a lot more opportunities to earn Living Legend points. But aside from that, of course, it's also just the power of Bravo and how consistently he wins tournaments, which means that he's just constantly shooting up in Living Legend. But I do think it is an indication of a problem potentially with the Living Legend system in terms of as the number of events that are being held grows, the number of Living Legend points you're going to get are going to grow as well. So, you have to deal with that problem. But also, there is also just the problem of heroes not being tested enough and then coming straight off the bat with, with this really powerful, gameplay strategy that basically means that they win quite a lot because they weren't really balanced properly. I personally feel like Bravo wasn't particularly balanced properly. Designed fun, but I feel like fun design in Flesh and Blood, when it's very, very tightly tuned at this stage, is a bit of a risk. Just in terms of you have to test these ideas first. They can't just be fun. I'm not saying don't make heroes fun, especially when it's going to a class that has quite a deep card pool already. Because we've seen two sets with Guardian in, as versus some classes that haven't even had two sets yet. And of course, Guardian got cards from Crucible, Everfest, Aria, and from Welcome to Wraith. Whereas other classes have not had cards from all those sets yet. And of course, he also, Starro just has access to all of those elemental cards from that set as well, which is a huge boon to him in terms of just playing the best cards essentially that came out in Aria, as most of the best cards aren't class locked, they're element locked, and just be able to turn those into a really powerful deck. So it'll be interesting to see. The next ban restricted list change is coming on April the 5th, I think. So in 2 weeks' time, we will, of course, be hopefully live on that day doing hot take reactions to those. So stay tuned for that. And always have a great time. Enjoy playing Flesh and Blood. The meta is actually really fun now, even despite the fact that Starro is so powerful. It is still really fun. Prism is really fun. Chain is really fun. Viscerai is really fun. So just keep playing the game. It's going to be really fun. The Pro Tour is going to be super exciting. I look forward to seeing tons of you there. I will be the guy wearing a t-shirt that says Steelfur. I will be the guy with the Steelfur sleeves. Do come and say hello to me. I'm more than happy to meet as many of you as possible while I'm in America. Talk to you all soon and have a great week.